The person leaves and you just stay there because, of course, you have the ongoing duress, believing that it would be, threatening to your life, to your well-being if you left that location. That is false imprisonment. It doesn't just mean literally handcuffing someone, of course. That seems obvious, but you never know. Some people might have questions. Yeah, that is based on their fear of leaving their home during the time of this harassment. Number 7 is vandalism. Number 8 is civil conspiracy, eBay's conspiracy to harass, threaten, stalk, and intimidate the Steiners. Number 9 is a violation of Massachusetts Chapter 93A, which allows consumers and businesses to sue for unfair business practices. And these practices, I feel, do fall under that. Unfair, to say the least. Claim number 10 is tortious interference with business relations. And the final and 11th claim is ratification. Essentially an allegation that eBay itself as a company ratified and thus is responsible for the conduct of the executives and employees involved in this case. This case proceeded through the pleading stage and discovery and was set for trial in March of 2026, actually just a month ago. The Steiners held out on settling the case with eBay because they saw it meaning forcing eBay to go through litigation for 5+ years. High legal fees, pain in the ass. It's just ongoing bad PR. I guarantee the measly $3 million criminal penalty, which I think, in my opinion, is very weak and not necessarily a deterrent, considering how big this company is. I bet that's a lot smaller than the amount the Steiners ended up finally settling for just a few weeks before trial. The exact amount of the settlement was not disclosed to the public, as they most often are not. It doesn't mean it's a red flag. Most settlements are confidential. However, that had happened just a few weeks before trial tells me eBay was likely desperate, and hopefully the Steiners were made at least somewhat whole after this experience. The company had no comment beyond the order, but has previously said in court papers that it was committed to compensating the Steiners, quote, fairly and appropriately for the appalling conduct they endured. Let's hope you wrote a fat check. And I kid you not, that is that. That is the case of the eBay stalking scandal. My rebuttal for today's episode is use your brain. Use your brain. If you don't have one, borrow one. Phone a friend. I'm begging you. Make that friend a lawyer and phone them first. All your convos are privileged, all right? Once you have that lawyer, that is a privileged combo. Borrow that brain for an hourly rate. I promise it will be much cheaper than it will be to serve several years in federal prison. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. I will see you next time on the Rebuttal Pod. Good God, don't send cockroaches to people.
Autopilot jumping.
A California man is under arrest after a shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington. CBS News correspondent Wendy Gillette reports on President Trump and the First Lady's safe evacuation.
Warping to station. Warp drive.
Gunshots rang out during the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Washington Hilton. Secret Service agents covered President Trump and the First Lady and quickly rushed them off stage.
I heard a noise and sort of thought it was a train. Tray going down.
CBS News correspondent Weijia Jiang was sitting next to the president.
We saw Secret Service agents approaching the head table and told us to get down, get down, get down.
The gunman, armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives, rushed past a security checkpoint, and agents opened fire, as did the suspect. President Trump posted this picture on social media after agents captured the man, identified as 31-year-old Cole Allen of Torrance, California. He was taken down before entering the event ballroom. Sources tell CBS News he was targeting administration officials.
One officer was shot, but saved by the fact that he was wearing obviously a very good bulletproof vest. He was shot from very close.
For 3 years, this program was allowed, this company, where no one was looking at it.
Tens of millions of dollars on an absolutely ridiculous investment, from my view.
But there was no malice. There was no criminal intent. I didn't steal or take anything.
Before the Kickstarter disasters, before the MMO scams, there was a collapse almost lost to time. A studio backed by a World Series champion, built with tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer-backed funds, chasing $1 billion dream. And for one brief, shining moment, it looked like they might actually pull it off. But behind the scenes was chaos, hubris, and a kind of optimism so relentless it became destructive. $150 million gone, hundreds of employees out of work, and taxpayers left holding the bag. This is 38 Studios and the MMORPG that never was, Project Copernicus, Kingdoms of Amalur.
I started the company with the ambition of being the best in the world, and that, yeah, a lot of people can say, well, yeah, who doesn't want to be, but with the ambition of...
Taxpayers left holding the bag. This is 38 Studios and the MMORPG that never was, Project Copernicus, Kingdoms of Amalur.
Kingdoms of Amalur bankrupted Rhode Island?
I started the company with the ambition of being the best in the world, and that, yeah, a lot of people can say, well, yeah, who doesn't want to be, but I believe if you're not aspiring to be better than everybody else, there's really no reason to do something. I knew I was going to come with a new original IP, so I wanted to mitigate as much risk as possible up front, so you get the guys that are the best in the world and what they do to do it.
He is a living legend. He won 3 World Series titles. He helped the Red Sox break an 86-year curse with an injured ankle and a bloody sock.
In 2004, Curt Schilling had already become a legend, but behind the accomplished Red Sox pitcher, there was something else, a surprising obsession: fantasy, video games.
I've been a gamer my whole life. I've gamed for about 30 years now, and I've always been a fantasy geek. The first game I truly remember falling in love with was Wizardry on the old Apple. You know, I was a very weird amalgam of things as a kid. I loved fantasy role-playing. I read Lord of the Rings when I was like 7 years old.
And above everything else, there was one genre he couldn't get enough of: MMORPGs.
My time sink has been MMOs for the most part, all the way back to Ultima Online, where I started to EverQuest 2.
In the original EverQuest, he wasn't a celebrity, he was a human monk named Silk, and in that world, he became anonymous. No press, no expectations, no spotlight. Just another player hiding in hotel rooms as he traveled.
After that day game Sunday that I pitched, I logged into EverQuest about 5:30 in the afternoon on the road in my hotel room, and I logged out Tuesday afternoon at 3. The bigger piece to me was that I have 4 children. Sean and my wife and I have 4 kids, and my kids have grown up with computers. I introduced them to EverQuest at a very young age, because when I was on the road, it was a way for me to play games with my kids.
By 2004, as he pitched one of the most famous games of his career, he was already deeply embedded in MMO culture. In EverQuest 2, he played an ogre defiler named Negrok, raiding, leading a guild, like everyone else, except with a slightly more expensive setup. At one point, EverQuest, Sony, even created an in-game character based on him for a charity event. But the deeper he went into these worlds, the more he started to notice their flaws, missed potential, frustrating design, and like many players at the time, he moved on to the biggest MMO of them all, World of Warcraft.
This is how you get around in the world when you have a couple bucks. Really, who I am is kind of irrelevant. I'm the average male. I'm very obsessive compulsive about my hobbies.
By this point, Schilling had already earned over $100 million in his baseball career. But that wasn't enough. He craved scale. Bill Gates
Wait,
rich.
I remember this name now. Yeah, Kurt Schilling was a baseball player and he was famous as hell. And then he turned out to be a video game dev.
Called it, not just for the money, but for what came after: philanthropy, influence, legacy. So naturally, he looked at the thing he loved most: video games. If you look at the game space now, if you want to build something that's $1 billion company, the only game to do that with is an MMO.
I wanted to be involved in something that I was passionate about, and the potential financially of, an MMO. You're talking about hundreds and millions and billions of dollars, which is just another way to change the world.
At the time, he wasn't wrong. In the 2000s, MMOs were exploding. Subscription models, massive player bases. World of Warcraft alone would surpass 10 million subscribers, turning Blizzard into $1 billion behemoth. And suddenly, everyone wanted in. Studios rushed to build the next big MMO. But there was a problem. MMOs were and are some of the most complex, expensive, and risky projects in gaming. Most of them would fail, and Kurt Schilling was about to find out why. In September 2006, Schilling announced his new studio in Maynard, Massachusetts, Green Monster Games. And this wasn't a side project. Post-retirement, he was all in. My goal is to not just enter the marketplace, but to reach the apex. From the start, Schilling aimed high. He wanted what he called a dream team, a group capable of raising the bar for online gaming.
Well, clearly I was looking for the best in the world.
I wanted to do something that I really wanted to play.
And using his profile, he got one. Todd McFarlane, comic book legend. R.A. Salvatore, best-selling writer. Art, lore, identity, the foundations of a soon-to-be massive fantasy world. The ambition was clear, and so was the mindset. In the company's motto, if you can't do it better than it's ever been done before, work for someone else. Or the company's slogan, world domination through gaming. A phrase Schilling liked so much, he tattooed it on his arm. And he didn't stay distant, he went straight to the players, the forums.
I've tried to start threads on all the MMO forum boards around and be an active part of the discussion.
Places like Fires of Heaven, one of the most hardcore MMO communities at the time. Originally a super guild from the EverQuest days. And there, under his in-game name, McGrock, he joined the discussion, answering questions, debating ideas. Some people were excited, others skeptical. Was this even feasible? Could a brand new studio really compete with World of Warcraft? Schilling didn't avoid the questions, he leaned into them. At the time, he estimated a budget of around $50 million, not that far off from WoW's own budget, $50 to $100 million. And he believed that if they achieved the vision they set forth, they would change the landscape of the industry game-wise and company-wise forever. In another post, he added, I want GMG to enter the space in an unprecedented fashion with something the gaming world is eagerly anticipating. I don't want to do it with false hype, years of lead up to something that fizzles. By 2007, the company rebranded. Green Monster Games became 38 Studios, referencing his jersey number. But the ambition had grown, the scope was expanding. The studio now described itself as an entertainment company. Its goal to create groundbreaking intellectual properties that inspire a vast selection of entertainment experiences. If there was an embodiment of putting the cart before the horse, 38 Studios was it, and the structure expanded just as fast. Veteran executives such as Brett Close from former Midway and EA was brought in as CEO.
Everybody likes to come out and say, we're going to be the best at something. We're just going to be great. Trust us. Not everybody can assemble a team of the top industry people.
But there was also some unusual choices. Schilling appointed his uncle by marriage, Bill Thomas, as COO, an experienced businessman, but with no background in game development at all. Schilling's wife's mother was also given a curious role: philanthropy and charity manager.
Oh, there it is.
At the same time, the studio itself was growing rapidly, from around 20 employees in 2006 to over 60 by 2008. Veterans came from across the industry, such as Steve Denuser from EverQuest 2, or Ken Rolston, lead designer behind Morrowind and Oblivion. Big names, real talent, everything looked like it was coming together. And it was easy to believe it, because inside 38 Studios, it didn't feel like a startup company.
We want to be the most successful entertainment company on the planet in space.
It felt like a dream. You see, there was a reason so many people were willing to join, and it wasn't just the PR speak. Schilling aimed to build something close to a utopian office, and the benefits reflected that. Employees received top-tier health coverage, maxed out retirement plans, additional spending accounts, free gym gold memberships. Then there were the extras, and oh boy, there were extras. Every employee was given a high-end laptop, paid for directly by Schilling, 2 homes rented to temporarily house out-of-state hires, totaling over $2 million, free meals, travel and entertainment expenses, which would eventually exceed $700,000. And on top of all of that, the average salary sat around $86,000 annually, well above what many developers were used to at the time, which would be around $130,000 today. If Santa Claus was real, he was probably sitting at 38 Studios. So to employees, it felt unreal. The message was being sent that there was plenty of money, but for a startup with no product, that kind of spending came with an obvious risk. What if the game ultimately didn't succeed? What if capital was to run out before it even had a chance to release? Which brings us to the game itself, Project Copernicus, the MMO, the dream, and well, almost nothing was shown.
In terms of development cycles for this industry, for this particular genre, for what we're doing, they're long development cycles, and for us to do too much of a reveal is really not justice to the intellectual property of the product.
In 2008, at Comic-Con, the studio revealed it publicly, concept art, the project name, but very little else. Behind the scenes, Salvatore was building a 10,000-year backstory, a massive universe, a universe that would be later known as Amalur, a setting that Schilling would go on to link it to Middle-earth for the teenagers of today. And on the technical side, the game was being built on Unreal Engine 3, a practical choice, but not necessarily ideal for an MMO of this scale. The target release, 2010 to 2011. Ambitious? Maybe even possible, but the expectations were something else entirely. Internally, the project was projected to generate over $100 million per year in profits as a free-to-play MMO with microtransactions. Like almost anything attached to 38 Studios, that estimation was extremely optimistic, placing it in the top 5 MMOs at the time. With the magic of retrospection, early leaked footage showed a colorful world, not unlike WoW itself, a familiar style, a familiar feel, even the UI, but some ideas stood out. Dynamic world events, bosses that could reshape entire areas if players failed to defeat, ambitious systems that also raised practical questions. Even with the limited information though, the premise was enough. The idea of something new in the MMO space, people were interested, and the momentum kept building.
My goal is world domination through gaming. The potential here is mind-blowing. We're in a situation where we really have a lot of freedom to build the best products possible. I truly believe we're unstoppable. We're not just a video game company. We're an entertainment company.
But the ambition didn't stop at the game or its mechanics or its features. Remember, from the beginning of the rebrand, this was to be an entertainment company, and that direction started to show. In October 2008, the company acquired the World of Warcraft fan site, Azeroth Advisor, to further bolster their presence in the MMO space. Exactly how that would fit into the larger plan was never entirely clear, but what stood out more were the long-term plans.
Why wouldn't we be doing comic books with Todd McFarlane involved? Why wouldn't we be doing short stories and potentially novels with RA involved? Why wouldn't we be doing comics or ebooks with Todd and RA story together? Why wouldn't we be doing collectible toys? Those are all like no-brainers where we want to be potentially unique and different. I mean, I think there's multiple movies in this lore and in this IP. You haven't thought of something we haven't thought of, and there's so much we're gonna do, but there's a right time, a right place, and a right execution plan for that.
Now granted, it's good to have long-term goals, but building an MMO was already hard enough. Expanding into multiple areas, trying to become some sort of small-time Disney before a single game had been released, they would risk themselves of spreading too thin and collapse under their own weight. Nevertheless, the expansion continued. In 2009, 38 studios acquired Big Huge Games, a respected developer known for Rise of Nations. At the time, THQ, its owner, was struggling financially. The global economy was in the middle of a deep crisis, and Schilling had the big bucks to step in and save the studio. But the question lingered in the air. Why? Just to be a savior? Well, not exactly, because you see, from the outside, it all looked like progress.
We knew early on that what we were building in terms of a history and a lore for the world was bigger than one game, even a game as big as an MMO. And so we developed these tens of thousands of years of history. And we thought, this particular period would be really great for a single player RPG. This period would be really awesome for an RTS game. This period would be great for an MMO. We wanted to create this history that would serve as the basis for an ecosystem of games.
But looking closer, the red flag over 38 studios only grew bigger. Internally, tensions were starting to rise. Curt Schilling wasn't technically the CEO, but he held the most power, the biggest stick as the sole owner. And with that came inexperience. He would often bypass management, give direct orders to developers, sometimes contradicting previous decisions. Deadlines slipped, and accountability didn't follow. At the same time, Schilling was responsible for finding additional investment because the costs were growing fast. What started as an initial $5 million out of pocket and a few close investors had already climbed to tens of millions, around $30 million by 2010 from Schilling's investment alone.
Does the $35 million make you a little more nervous?
Oh, a lot more nervous. It makes me $35 million more nervous.
He pitched investors, publishers, venture capitalists. Again and again, the answer kept coming back the same. Many saw the ambition, but not the structure behind it. And Schilling wasn't willing to give up any form of equity, control, so the deals never closed. Some employees later described Schilling with an always overly confident attitude, convinced the deals would go through, even when they clearly weren't. Curt sincerely believed that Copernicus was the best thing since sliced bread. He could not imagine a scenario where other people could not see the same potential as he did. His attitude is always, this is gonna happen, the deal is going to close. But they never did. Those failed deals then started to create pressure inside the studio. Tensions grew between Schilling and the CEO, Brett Close. Around the same time, Jan McLean, VP of Business Development, pushed forward the acquisition of Big Huge Games. The buyout added around 70 developers to the company, and with them, an RPG prototype already in development. Within months, Brett Close was out, a forced resignation, and Jan McLean stepped in as the new CEO. By this point, Project Copernicus was still years away, far beyond its original timeline, so the strategy changed. Instead of waiting, they would build something smaller, a single-player RPG based on the Big Huge Games prototype, but set in the world of Amalur.
And it created a great opportunity for us to take this IP that we had and bring it to life in that engine that was still tied in thematically to what you were going to experience in the MMO.
A prequel, faster to release, generate revenue, fund and provide a spotlight to the MMO. This new project, Project Mercury, soon to be Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, was to be built by Big Huge Games and led by experienced developers from 38 studios like Mark Nelson and Ken Rolston, both from Morrowind and Oblivion, and quickly enough, it secured a publishing deal with EA. Over $20 million rushed in. But even with that, the financial pressure hadn't gone away. The studio was larger than ever, 2 projects were in development, Schilling needed more money, and he needed it quickly. By his estimations, he believed he needed an additional $100 million in a couple of years to develop his magnum opus. But what he really needed was a savior, someone willing to bet everything on the dream. And when that investor finally came, it would spiral into something much bigger, a political scandal, one that would drag an entire state right down with it.
If you put a team of people with incredible character and integrity, pride, respect, loyalty, passion, commitment, you put a team of people comprised of those qualities together, you're going to win. You're going to be better than everybody else. And at some point, when this game ships and when this company takes its next step, people are going to recognize us as an absolute force.
You're the most braggadocio I've ever heard somebody say besides Trump.
March 6, 2010. At a fundraiser in Medfield,
You can't hear the Dunning-Kruger in your own
Schilling
voice, you
paths
fucking idiot.
with the then Rhode Island Republican governor, Donald Gachiri. They got to talk, and Schilling made his pitch. Not a game studio, not just an MMO, but what it could become. A Microsoft-like behemoth, hundreds of developers, a new tech magnet for an entire state. At that moment, both men needed something. Schilling needed money, and Rhode Island needed jobs. The state was still reeling from the recession, unemployment was among the highest in the country, and officials were desperate for anything that looked like growth. So over the next few months, the conversation turned into a proposal. Working with Rhode Island's Economic Development Corporation, the EDC, the state structured a deal up to $75 million in bond financing, a loan guarantee, a number that on paper looked more than enough. In exchange, 38 studios would relocate to Providence, Rhode Island, bring jobs, bring prestige, and supposedly help turn Rhode Island into a technology hub. For reference, these loans were typically around the $1 million range. To provide $75 million was absolutely extraordinary, but the deal came with conditions. The funding wouldn't be delivered all at once. Instead, it was tied to hiring thresholds. For over 3 years, they would need to go on a serious hiring spree, hitting specific job targets to unlock each chunk of the money. It sounded perfect. Money without giving up equity, funding without answering to traditional investors or a publisher. And in July 2010, the EDC board approved the deal by an 8-1 vote.
We're moving forward. We've closed on the transaction. We're looking forward to the company to relocate, invest, and grow within the state. And most importantly, we're looking forward to interacting with additional companies.
The estimates promised roughly 450 new high-paying jobs.
We're looking at hiring a massive amount of people in the next 1 to 2 years.
In truth, not everyone bought the dream. Some officials raised concerns. Lincoln Chafee, then a prominent critic of the deal and later governor, warned that if the company failed to pay back, taxpayers would be the ones holding the bill. He wasn't wrong, but at the time, the warnings were easy to ignore because 38 Studios looked like it was winning.
And if you watch people testing our game, and you have the videos of them, and when something cool happens, they go, woo, 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 woo. That's what I want. I want that special, excited 9-year-old reaction.
By 2011, Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning was building real momentum. The game had the right ingredients to generate hype. A huge fantasy setting, Todd McFarlane's art direction, Salvatore's world building, Ken Rolston's name attached to the design and what people
yeah, we were really hyped for this game. I remember it was like Kingdoms of Amalur is gonna be a fucking amazing RPG that'll be like a Skyrim. Nah, I mean the combat was good, but it was dated. It was in the 360 era where the hardware couldn't really do what it was trying to do that well. It was a whimsical game, and it was mostly a combat game. I might appreciate it more now than I used to, and it was a sandboxy game. But it was fairly linear in what you do to get through it, and I liked Kingdoms of Amalur, and they actually remastered it later. It's a Re-Reckoning, and I actually kind of want to buy Re-Reckoning, kind of, but again, it's a single player game. I think I'm kind of done with single player games. I don't think I want to play with myself anymore. I don't know. I think I want to change the setting.
Autopilot jumping.
Exit to main menu, and I want to go take a look at the TTK, because now I think I maybe wanted it 100% just to train me how to play the game correctly.
Warping to Stargate.
I have it on hard. I think, yeah, I have it on hard. Settings, not settings. Play, solo, edit. The enemy health, but I don't want, I don't know, that TTK is good, but I think I want to drop it actually to, I think 50%, like half of what these developers want. I want a new world TTK with a high combat difficulty, and the enemy damage should remain what it normally is. Oh, I don't know, this game one-shots. How about we drop it down to 50? Because it's like, I don't know, the damage, man, it's a little extreme. It's not the... Oh, how many enemy sailors must be defeated? No. We'll keep that at 100 because it kind of breaks the whole, like, training of it. Actually, I think the enemy ship's damage is totally fine. It's educational, but their ship health I don't like. It takes way too long to kill them. We're gonna drop that to 52.
Autopilot jumping.
Okay, well, I learned and I changed.
Warping to station.
Let's see how it
Warp
feels.
drive active.
I learned that in Windrose, it's actually so cool. Windrose is cool, right? It has a solo offline mode. And I didn't understand how it worked till just now, but then I saw that I could change my character, and I realized that I can farm loot in my solo world, and I can bring it to Bagon's world and use it for our team effort. And that blows my fucking mind. I can farm, it's kind of like a private, it's like, yeah, it's kind of like Fallout with the 76 with the, you're not, it's not a private server, but it's like that's the solo realm, or the one that isn't connected to the internet. Yeah, solo's good because the frame rate of solo is better. It's like a little better. So I guess I go west and just do the game like normal.
we're seeing looked promising. A bright, stylized world, fast action combat, loot, a dialogue wheel. It felt familiar, yet
it was too familiar.
Is this Fable meets Skyrim meets Dragon Age?
Yeah,
this game has continued to impress me. I swear it's like they took Fable 1 and injected it with God of War and the Darksiders. It's just so damn good. Even mainstream news started picking it up.
It looks amazing. Yeah, it looks fantastic, really fast-paced. Should have a great story behind it.
Kingdoms of Amalur.
Yes.
Reckoning. This is a fantastic game, and you've got some really big talents behind this.
The excitement was real, but while the public saw momentum, the company itself was getting more unstable by the month. Internally, 38 Studios had become a place where titles were handed out so freely that employees joked about it. "Oh, you are VP of lunch? Yeah, I'm VP of donuts." Funny, but less funny when you remember this was a company burning through millions of dollars a month of Schilling's own pocket and public-backed funding. And the spending didn't slow down. During the relocation, some employees were even offered help selling their homes. 38 Studios agreed to cover the mortgages on unsold properties while they moved and settled in Rhode Island. That's right, Santa Claus was back in town. By the start of 2012, the company had received around $49 million from the loan and grown to around...
How many people do you employ total?
Right around 400.
Reporting and later reviews placed the company's
for that single
monthly
game,
burn rate in roughly $4 to $5 million without a single drop of revenue. Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning was then poised to be big enough to keep everything else alive, or take everything down with it.
I want players to feel like they got to experience a world they've never seen before and that they want more. I want them to leave and go, well, what else is happening in Amalur? Because, you know, we're doing more in that world. We want them to see that.
There's so much depth and there's so much personality and character that there are endless possibilities for products.
I want them to be excited about what happens 5 years later, 20 years later, 2,000 years later. So I'm excited to get them into the world and just kind of experiencing everything that we've built.
February 7th, 2012. Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning launched, and it was actually quite good. Reviews from major outlets generally landed between 7s and 9s. Players responded positively as well. The combat felt fast and responsive. Character builds offered flexibility. The world was large, colorful, and full of content. But that's where the game also carried one of the studio's core problems right into the design itself. It often felt like an MMO wearing a single-player RPG mask. A lot of the questing was repetitive, kill and fetch quests, and for all that background lore, it felt mostly unutilized. Still, Reckoning sold well, over 1 million copies in a couple of months, and building a following that only grew over time. It even outperformed EA's internal projections. It sounds like great success, because for almost any normal studio, it would have been. But 38 Studios wasn't a normal studio. To begin receiving royalties after EA recouped its advance, Reckoning needed to clear a much higher sales bar. Reports at the time put that threshold above 2 million copies, with public officials later using even higher break-even estimates. Either way, the game sold well, and it still wasn't enough. And when your game can outperform EA's expectations and still not bring in profit, something has gone catastrophically wrong. Reckoning was never the end goal. It was supposed to buy time for the real bet. Project Copernicus, the MMO, was already years into development, still unfinished, still expensive, still hungry. That's a month.
I love this. I can farm my solo private server and I can treat it like this endless solo playground. I don't have to worry about quests in this stupid world because I have progress from the other world, right? And I can just farm mats here whenever we're not playing, and I can take it to his world, and I don't need him to be online. He doesn't need me to be online, and it's actually really good. I don't know if I should. Chop those trees, but okay, I didn't pick up any of that clay, so I'm gonna go get it. And that makes this like my new game. This, like that, I believe Wimrose is actually my new game. There was some issues that I was really struggling with. Like, well, I can't like lackadaisically grind while I play other games and stuff, and that's a deal breaker for me. I can't take the loot to bag on when he's not offline. They want $15 a month to run a like an actual live server. I could do interesting things, like we know that, well, I don't know, I don't know actually, but if I shoot far northeast looking for a new island and stuff, I will oh, I just want to play the game. It's all right. The DLSS is good. It like really does make the game run
Even more
well.
warning signs. The hiring suddenly froze. By March 2012, CEO Jen McLean quietly went on leave. I left 38 Studios on an indefinite leave of absence on March 23rd, 2012. She would then resign from her post in May 17. Schilling, under more pressure than ever before, put up part of his personal gold collection as collateral for another loan, but bills were piling up. Vendors weren't being paid, and by May 1st, the first $1 million on the Rhode Island loan was due, but the coffers were completely empty, defaulting on the payment.
But who is concerned? This is a company, obviously I supported the loan guarantee program. If they go bankrupt or out of business, then those bonds become due and someone's going to be on the hook for them. The taxpayers, the state of Rhode Island. Absolutely, see, and I'm one of those taxpayers. We'll be on the hook for them.
Now wait, so oh, maybe it doesn't share progression. I think it only shares items, but I was able to bring items that I made on his server back to my server, but I don't know if I can bring my items to his server. And I will need to mess with it. Yeah, no, well, yeah, I have my levels, which is cool. I do have my stuff. That is cool. Yeah, this is a long, complicated game if you want to actually do it well. It is. I like it. I think I like it more than 7 Days to Die. Because it has all the quality of life that 7 Days doesn't have, like teleportation and stuff like that. And I don't think we should always have teleportation, but I think we should have a concept of, I've made this trip 15 times. I don't want to waste my real life time just so that I can prove to the video game that I can go back to that place 15 times. I just want to teleport back now. I don't want to teleport to it. I want to teleport. Well, I do want to. I don't know. I think teleporting to the place is cheating, but I think teleporting back to your like taking the Fallout 76, you know, Take Me Home Country Roads thing. I think you should be able to teleport back to your base. I just don't think you should be able to teleport out.
Eventually.
To make matters worse, the political climate had changed. Kachiri was gone. Lincoln Chafee, one of the deal's early critics, was now governor, and Chafee had a personal bone to pick for the previous administration decisions. And for Schilling, he kept searching for a miracle. In April 2012, 38 Studios sent employees to Asia.
I can't believe the Kingdoms of Amalur guy was Kurt Schilling, the baseball player. I have fucking no idea. And he bankrupted fucking Rhode Island somehow. He got a government loan, I guess, for video games somehow from some crooked like tech oligarchs. And they gave him $150 million tax loan from or not tax loan, but a public loan, I think, from Rhode Island is what we're gonna hear, which is fucking insane. I can't believe that. He like used a city to fund his video game, and the game was mid at best, I would say. At least that's my appraisal of it. Maybe the remaster is a little better.
To explore a possible partnership, and Exxon was among.
We heard they were remastering it, and everybody was kind of like, why? It was like this middling 360 game. It's not a game it's not a game of the year. It's not, it wasn't game of the year ever. It wasn't well received like that. Why would you remaster a game that nobody really liked that much? They liked it when it first came out because it was just a new game. Yeah, I don't like long TK. I want new world combat. I still think it's a little fast, but no, that's because I'm over leveled for these mobs now.
The companies reported to have shown interest. At the same time, a sequel to Reckoning, Project Evergreen, was in early production. Maybe one more deal could save the company. Maybe one more investor could keep Copernicus alive. Maybe the illusion could hold just a little longer. But by May 14, 2012, before most employees even knew how bad things had become, Chafee, when asked about 38 Studios defaulting on the payment, simply said, "The work at stake is keeping 38 Studios solvent." And with that, the illusion broke.
We begin tonight with in-depth coverage of the 38 Studios scandal 2 years after Kurt Schilling's company came to Rhode Island with the promise of a big loan backed by your tax dollars. The video game developer is finished.
To understand what happened next, you also have to understand the position of Rhode Island's new governor, Lincoln Chafee, because the deeper you look into this story, the less it becomes a simple case of right and wrong. The original deal approved under Donald Cacciari was always risky, that much is clear. A $75 million loan guarantee tied to a single company with no proven track record in one of the most speculative game genres in the world. And when Chafee took office in 2011, he was now in charge of overseeing it. A massive bet on a company and a man he personally didn't trust.
What's going on in this state? We're going to give a retired baseball player $75 million? And all the business community's in favor of it?
In 2010, shortly after the deal was approved, Chafee not only questioned the deal, but Schilling himself. I just remember his teammates didn't like him. They thought he was a bit of a salesman. I remember one of his teammates said he painted his sock, the bloody sock. He painted it. Not only that, given the scale of the investment, you might expect close monitoring, and yet oversight remains almost non-existent. Investigations later found that the EDC held dozens of meetings and never once formally reviewed the company's financial condition. IBM, yes, that computer giant, was brought in as a third party to monitor the deal. But here's the part nobody told loud and clear. IBM was being paid by 38 Studios, not the state. Meaning the company being monitored was effectively paying its own watchdog. Ultimately, no meaningful reports were ever produced. As for Schilling, he claimed the opposite, that reports were sent monthly and that the state simply wasn't paying attention. And Chafee, he later admitted, he kept his distance deliberately, not because everything was fine, but because he didn't want to become the fall guy, considering this wasn't his deal. I had so many reservations about this being a bad deal that I was reluctant to micromanage, to have it be Chafee screwing this up.
It's a tough business, and I don't how the state ever got involved in this, I'll never know. And we'll be processed to the look back. Governor Kurt Schilling ever get involved in this risky enterprise.
Back to May 2012, after Chafee publicly stated that the goal was simply keeping 38 Studios solvent, it was the final nail in the coffin. Schilling would later claim that a $35 million deal with Take-Two Interactive was close to being finalized for the Reckoning sequel, and that Chafee's comments killed it. However, reporting from Boston Magazine, a Take-Two spokesperson said that no such finalized deal was ever in place. Whoever was telling the truth ultimately wouldn't matter. What is clear, however, is what happened next. That same week, employees missed payroll, and yet most of them stayed. Schilling had built that kind of loyalty through his generosity, through his passion. So even without pay, people kept showing up, working, hoping,
the hitboxes are not good,
until the news vans arrived.
My priority right now is to get back and talk to my team. We gotta move on.
You'll make it. This is the show you've talked all your life. Why don't you turn around and be at the end right now? It's like you're running away.
But the company wasn't finished yet. Maybe just as Schilling saved the Red Sox back in 2004, he could do so again. By May 18, Schilling managed to cover the required loan payment. One last push, one last attempt to keep things alive. Schilling then requested to the state access to additional money, around $6 million in tax credits. According to him, it would unlock a new round of funds, a $15 to $20 million investment. However, this angel investor needed to be first in line for the repayment. It was enough to keep it going, but
how did that not
Chafee
hit?
Refused.
I don't like
There
the
is a process,
hitboxes.
and we're adhering to it. But right now, nobody has access to tax credits. People work hard for their money. I just don't like to see it put at risk.
During that same press conference, Chafee publicly revealed that Project Copernicus was targeting a June 2013 release, a detail that hadn't even been coordinated with the studio. To no surprise, tensions escalated, trust was non-existent. Many believed that Chafee was deliberately sabotaging the studio, and whatever chance remained started slipping away. In a final act of desperation, on May 19, 2012, developers rushed to assemble a trailer for Project Copernicus, or rather, Kingdoms of Amalur, the first real glimpse of the MMO, a last attempt to attract investors, a last attempt to survive. But it was too late. May 24th, 2012, an email went out. The company is experiencing an economic downturn. To avoid further losses and the possibility of retrenchment, the company has decided that a company-wide layoff is absolutely necessary. These layoffs are non-voluntary and non-disciplinary. This is your official notice of layoff, effective today. Over 400 employees gone overnight. Behind the headlines was a human cost. Employees were losing everything. Unpaid wages, lost healthcare. For some, that meant cancer treatments were suddenly out of reach. For others, pregnancy support disappeared overnight.
I can't believe how much better this is.
There were the relocations. People who had moved their lives to Rhode Island were now stuck between two homes. All the houses that 38 Studios did not manage to sell reverted back to the original owners, meaning owners were now with two potential mortgages, or a mortgage and rent, with no income. Inside the company, opinions fractured. Some still defended Schilling. He had been generous, committed, willing to spend his own fortune to make it work, blaming Chafee for not doing more to save the studio. Others were far less forgiving, criticizing the lack of communication, the chaos at the end. As one executive put it to Curt Schilling, "You bet our lives on the roulette wheel of Rhode Island state politics." But by then, it didn't matter anymore. June 7th, 2012, 38 Studios filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And the numbers here were staggering. Around $150 million in debt across more than 1,000 creditors. Over 100 million of that owed to the state EDC. By June 2012, Schilling alone had invested over $50 million of his own money. Every single cent gone with zero return. I put everything in my name in this company. I believed in it. I believed in what we built. I never took a penny in salary. I never took a penny for anything.
And I'm hoping that, you know, once all the dust settles, maybe somebody would be smart enough to come in there and pick up the pieces and then just take it to the finish line, because it's only 10 yards away from the goal line. Wow. And it's you know, Kurt got it 90 yards. And if somebody wants to come and get it the other 10 yards, they're going to have a hell of a game on their hands. I mean, if I had the extra cash, I'd do it myself.
In the years that followed the bankruptcy, everything was dismantled, assets sold, equipment auctioned off. By 2014, what was once a bustling studio, only one single developer remained.
So literally the last man standing at 38.
It has been a challenge to wear a lot of hats, had to learn a lot of stuff.
But one thing remained unfinished: Project Copernicus. The state of the game was polarizing. Kurt Schilling had an opinion that didn't sit well with many developers. To quote, "The game wasn't fun. It was my biggest gripe for probably the past 8 to 12 months. Developers disagreed.
The game just wasn't
fun. The game was roughly 75% complete, and they shared internal footage with Kotaku, offering the first real look at Project Copernicus, Kingdoms of Amalur. They said it was structurally similar to World of Warcraft, but with a more condensed ability system, fewer keys, more focused combat. For a pre-alpha build in the early 2010s, it showed some potential. Not necessarily a game that would dethrone WoW, but one that might have found its place in the MMO space. For gamers, like so many MMOs before and after it, it was simply one more added to the list in a never-ending carousel of disappointment. But the fallout didn't end there, because then came the truth, the part that reframed everything. The state and ultimately taxpayers were left responsible for millions in losses, and with that came investigations. Investigations that revealed this wasn't just a deal gone wrong, it was something deeper, a system that was broken from the start. And it begins with the money. According to the SEC, key players in structuring the deal included the banks, Wells Fargo and Barclays, and everyone from the EDC to the banks understood the same thing. 38 studios needed at least $75 million in usable funding to complete Project Copernicus. But that's not what they received. After fees, reserves, and other bond issuing costs, the company only received around $50 million in actual cash, resulting in a gap of precious $25 million. Everyone involved in putting the deal together understood this, yet it fell short of what the company's own projections required. And there's proof. Back in 2010, during the deal proceedings, the vice chairman of the 38 Studios board, Thomas Zaccanino, sent this curious email to the then CEO, Jen McLean. "I really do not think we should highlight the fact that we might be undercapitalized. Won't go over well with the staff or board." Meaning, not only the EDC and the banks knew it wasn't enough, but also 38 studios, and yet all decided to move forward anyway, hoping that more investment would come later. Private investment that never came. At the same time, bond investors, the ones actually funding the deal, were never clearly told by the EDC and the bank that the company needed more money than what was being raised. All of this is not surprising though, considering the 38 Studios report delivered to the EDC board members, including Donald Kachuri, the then governor, wasn't even read in full. In it, it compared the deal as an all-in hand of poker, effectively highlighting the benefits, but also the pitfalls. Yet, board members and Kachuri, quote, either only read the one-page executive summary or did not recall reading it at all. Remember the 8-1 vote in favor of the loan? Well, the only vote against the deal came from the only member who actually read the full report. But even that wasn't the full story, because the deeper you go, the more incompetence and even deceit is revealed. A year before the deal was even discussed, in 2009, 3 people met privately: Rhode Island House Democrat Speaker Gordon Fox, 38 Studios lobbyist and lawyer Michael Corso, and again Thomas Zaccanino. Publicly, Fox was one of the strongest advocates for the 38 Studios deal from the very beginning. Corso, on the other hand, operated behind the scenes, a tax credit broker specializing in helping companies secure and monetize state incentives. In May 29, 2009, he first struck a tax credit deal with a company of which Zaccanino was president, a month before Zaccanino himself joined 38 Studios' board as vice chairman. This is the earliest interaction of them that we know. Months later, as we came to know from a deposition of former House Speaker William Murphy, recalled something unusual: a late-night meeting in Gordon Fox's office. Present in that room, Michael Corso, Thomas Zaccanino, and Fox himself. Coincidentally, shortly after that meeting, the state's job creation program was expanded from $50 million to $125 million. The same program that would later fund 38 Studios, and coincidentally again, the exact same amount the program increased was the amount 38 Studios was about to receive. And there's something even more curious. Remember that fundraiser event where Schilling initially met Governor Don Cacciuri? Well, according to an email from Zaccanino to Gordon Fox was also planted in that fundraiser, claiming that it would give them an opportunity to chat with Kurt again. The keyword here being again, which raises the question, was that really their first meeting, or were all of them playing the governor and the state behind their back? From there, Fox would then arrange further meetings between Schilling, Corso, and the EDC officials, such as the director, Keith Stokes. Meaning, from the very beginning, Fox, Corso, Zaccanino, and potentially Kurt Schilling may have played the long game, positioning the pieces, expanding the program, and earmarking the funding for 38 Studios before any deal was ever formally announced. Fox, however, denied most of this, claiming he only became aware of 38 Studios after it was brought to him by Governor Don Cacciuri,
who called me after a meeting that apparently the governor had with Kurt Schilling, said, what kind of programs can you introduce us to Keith Stokes? Okay.
Was that the first time
I have slept around the company. First time in 38 Studios.
But when questioned during investigations about additional meetings and his relationship with Corso, he invoked the Fifth Amendment over and over again. And that relationship is key because Corso was deeply embedded in the deal. As the main lawyer involved, everything flowed through him, and in return, he was paid, earning through some reports $2 million through fees and even over $200,000 just before the company collapsed. But here's the part that's almost unbelievable. Corso was not even registered as an official lobbyist, despite being paid to act as one, and the state simply didn't check.
Why not find out why someone didn't register as a lobbyist?
Because we'd have to find out who to look for first. I mean, I don't know who was lobbying for 38 Studios.
In the end, it wasn't just terrible mismanagement from a man and company with absurd overspending, toxic optimism, hubris, and scope creep by 38 Studios. It was systemic, spanning the company, across the state, and the financial institutions behind it. All of them selling a ticket to a bridge that they knew ended halfway across the river. No criminal charges were ever filed directly tied to the deal, but various civil settlements were achieved from banks, agencies, and law firms, totaling roughly $60 million. As for Gordon Fox, he was never charged in relation to 38 Studios, but later resigned in disgrace, sentenced to 3 years in federal prison over charges of bribery, fraud, and false tax returns, and related to 38 Studios. Corso did face a penalty over the whole ordeal, agreeing to pay a much smaller settlement of 40.
I can't believe that you bankrupted Providence, Rhode Island for fucking Kingdoms of Amalur.
$5,000 in 2015.
Docking
And for
permission
last,
requested.
Kurt Schilling,
Docking
other
permission
38
requested.
Studios executives like Thomas Zaccanino settled their lawsuit for allegedly defrauding the state for $2.5 million in 2016.
Docking permission
Schilling,
requested.
however,
Docking request accepted. Autopilot disabled. Waypoint reached.
Hello YouTube, it's your boy Dante with another optimization guide. In graphics settings, the first impactful setting we get is global illumination. This setting controls the overall lighting of the game. Here you can see how the low setting looks very dull and washed off compared to epic setting. This is how all settings look in game. Performance-wise, this setting was quite demanding, with a difference of 12 FPS between the highest and lowest option.
Okay, well, let's go by frames there. But I don't like turning global illumination down, but it's such a beautiful game, I don't think it matters. Ooh. I didn't see Wimrose coming. I thought it was just going to be like a fun little jaunt. But no, it might actually be a really good world to live in, maybe. I don't know. It'll probably get boring eventually. Okay, we did buy about 10 frames there, I would say, and I don't see a difference. I don't see a difference.
Here I will recommend high setting as it looks almost the same as epic setting, but you can select medium if you want more performance.
Yeah, maybe I want it on
medium. The next setting
medium,
is shadows, which controls the resolution of shadows in the game. Here is the difference of shadows in all settings. As for shadow distance, they are the same on all settings as you can see here in the comparison between epic versus low settings. Here is the performance comparison of all the settings. Here I will recommend high shadows for almost no visual loss and a tiny FPS boost.
Okay, high, yeah, low, or well, I'm sorry, medium, high.
On the other hand, if you are liking this guide so far, be sure to check more optimization guides on the channel as well, for games like Resident Evil Requiem, Death Stranding and many more. The next setting is anti-aliasing, which is used to reduce the jaggedness of 3D models in the game. In this game, this setting is only effective when you are using Unreal Engine's TSR upscaler here, which I doubt you will be using as it is an inferior upscaler compared to DLSS and FSR. Visually, all setting looks almost identical when TSR is selected. Performance is almost the same for these options as well. Here I will recommend off setting as I will never recommend using TSR upscaler in this game. Just use DLSS or FSR as they come with their own anti-aliasing techniques which are far better than TSR. Next setting is view distance, which controls the distance at which objects are drawn/rendered by your graphics cards. But in this game the difference between epic and near settings is very minimal, and you will barely be able to spot any difference during normal gameplay. Performance wise, the story was the same with only a 3 FPS difference between all settings. Next we get textures, which controls the resolution of textures in the game. Here is the comparison of all settings. This setting only requires VRAM of your graphics cards, and as long as you have enough VRAM, you will lose 0 FPS, so there is no need to show performance comparisons here. Here is the approximate VRAM consumption of this game and recommendation. Also to inform that this is for 1080p resolution only. On higher resolutions, you will of course be needing more VRAM. Next setting is effects, smoke, water droplets, etc. Here you can see the intensity of rain effects in all settings. Here is another example showing water droplets and fire effects. Performance-wise, this is not a demanding setting, since they were. Next is reflections, which as the name suggests, adds reflections to reflective surfaces in the game. Here is the visual comparison of reflections on water surfaces. Here you can see that there is very minuscule difference between epic and low settings. Performance-wise, this is not a demanding setting with only a 4 FPS difference. Here I will recommend medium reflections. The next setting is post-processing, which normally adds camera effects like depth of field and color grading, but in this game it also adds ambient occlusion to the game as well.
I'd like to sub to your
Ambient
channel,
occlusion in games adds soft shadows to corners and creases depending on ambient light, resulting in adding depth to the image. Here you can see that medium, high and epic setting have more depth compared to low, which looks a little flat because of no ambient occlusion. Performance-wise, there is a 9 FPS difference between the highest and lowest option. Here I will recommend setting, adding depth to the image. Here you can see that medium, high and epic setting have more depth compared to low, which looks a little flat because of no ambient occlusion. Performance-wise, there is a 9 FPS difference between the highest and lowest option. Here I will recommend medium post-processing quality. The next setting is grass draw distance, which as the name suggests controls the amount of foliage in the game. Here you can see that epic and high setting has almost the same number of grass patches, while medium and low has less patches near you and at the distance as well. Performance-wise, this was also not a demanding setting with only a 4 object. The next setting is shader quality, which adds shading to all objects in the environment. Here is the perfect example in which you can see the walls and objects around you having better shading in higher settings compared to low. Performance-wise, this setting was quite demanding with an 11 FPS difference. Here I will recommend medium shader quality as it looks the same as Epic's setting with a good FPS boost. In the end, I would like to show you one more important setting, which is upscalers. Here we can select upscalers from DLSS, FSR and TSR. Basically what upscalers do is render the game at low resolution first and then the image is upscaled to your native resolution, saving you a lot of FPS. In the upscaler types section, selecting any of the options determines the percentage of resolution that these upscalers render at start before upscaling. Here is the info of all the resolution percentages that these settings use. In short, let's say you select DLSS quality setting, then your graphics card only renders 67% resolution before the image is upscaled to native, saving you about 30% performance. On the other hand, the highest setting in each upscaler, like DLAA, always renders 100% resolution, which means no upscaling but the best anti-aliasing possible on the image. With all that said, here is the visual difference between all the upscaler when set to quality setting. Here is the performance comparison of all upscalers. Here I will recommend DLSS if you own an Nvidia graphics card, but if you don't, then use FSR only, as TSR image has a lot of shimmering issues. Now let us compare the visuals and performance of max settings of this game with our optimized setting. As you can see, there is almost no visual loss in graphics fidelity between both images. In the end, performance wise, we went from 71 FPS to 96 FPS, which is a whopping 26 FPS boost while still maintaining very good visuals. And this brings us to the end of the guide. If this video was helpful to you, kindly like and support the channel by subscribing and hitting.
Oh, it looks like Trump's gonna fire Kash Patel.
Pirate life can be really challenging, especially when it comes to combat and what to spend your piastres and your guineas on. So I've got a few top tips today. Things the game doesn't explicitly tell you and some big mistakes I made in the first 25 hours. What to focus on with your ship upgrades. Make the most of traders and a lot more. Let's go. It's number one, pretty obvious, but there is counter transfer. I spent a bit of time in the official Windrose Discord this morning, and the amount of complaints from people complaining about resources playing with friends is pretty high. Well, you can just load up your single player world and go ahead and mine or grab whatever it is that is in short supply and join back to the server or your friend's world. This is my character from my more advanced single player world, but I'm able to join my friend's actual server with all of my resources. We discovered it takes about 6 real hours to go ahead and get some of the copper respawning. The game is centered around 4 players, but if you're playing on servers with a lot more players, then yeah, you're going to run into issues. Of course, you can sail off to another island and make that whole island your own, but if you want to build a close community together and share stuff and kind of sick of struggling to get some things, then you might want to just cheese a little bit and go to a single player world. Good news also, it still also works on your own single player worlds. So if you make another world, you'll transfer that character to it too. It's something Valheim fans have long used, especially in Valheim, where you can kind of very much cheese getting resources back without having to use portals or struggling to get your ores back because you can't take them through portals. But Windrose being extremely grindy for certain things like nice build materials and other stuff, with the piastres being hard to get by, I still think this is probably worth a little bit of cheese. And a little one with that as well, be careful about who you let in onto your servers, as there's no way to lock boxes or any of your buildings just yet. So something to bear in mind. If you find some stuff missing, you may have a pirate raiding within your midst. Okay, next thing, we've got Tortuga. It's going to be the home of lots of NPCs where hopefully you'll be able to buy a bunch of stuff. There's actually 4 different traders that you'll find in the big zone. You also have a smuggler's own camp. You've got the Buccaneers where they live too. And then you've got the Brethren of the Coast. Most of the pirate encampments or towns will be part of the main story anyway. Although the Buccaneers camp I did only actually find after coming across another pirate camp on an island that then told me to go and report the loss of his pirates to him on the actual Buccaneers island. But yeah, as soon as they pop up, things like that where you've got to go and talk to someone, generally all of the NPCs will be in a point of interest where you can sell and buy stuff. So, factions, which one's the best one to level up with? Well, it's not that simple. Clearly you're going to need to level up lots of them because they all offer or sell separate things. It's worth noting though that the Brethren of the Coast, they do sell your ship upgrades, so you can unlock the brig as well as the next one after that. But you won't necessarily be able to craft it because it does require quite a lot of resources from the foothill zone. And that's something I really wish I knew a bit earlier. I wasted a bunch of my piastres unlocking it, 1,000, as well as ranking up with that faction, to only discover I couldn't actually build the ship. I'm pretty sure you won't be able to obviously craft the frigate either until you've gone and unlocked the swamp zone. So yeah, don't waste your piastres and think carefully about the factions. I would really take a look at the armours that they're selling and try and get a complete set. Now you can find pieces of armour for completing quests and in chests and stuff. It took me like 25 hours to get 3 pieces of the actual gear set I wanted. With hand-to-hand combat being pretty much the bottleneck where people are struggling in this game, anything that you can do to help that, to make it a bit easier through the rest of it, is definitely a focus for me. So yeah, any kind of bonus or buff that you can get by unlocking some new armour is definitely worth it. Just make sure it really is the playstyle you want to go through. While you can reset your points and your talents anytime you want for free, if you go ahead and use the deconstruction bench, which you can unlock pretty early, then you'll only ever get the base resources back. You don't get anything that you've upgraded. So you really want to make sure it's the playstyle for you with the armour before you start using your resources to upgrade. And if you find the NPC encampments and towns first, you can really take a look at what they've got and see if you've got enough to buy a full blue set at least. And that will help you a lot in the early stages with whatever bonus it will give, whether it's one-handed extra damage more critical shot, make sure you're leaning your talents and skills as well as the food that you're crafting into it. Otherwise, if you are just mooching around and you maybe turned off the settings so you don't actually show some markers, then I would definitely invest in upgrading even the most basic gear, just because it's going to help you in that combat situation for a while. And yeah, as I said, it takes a while to find some of this stuff, or the pieces you really want, unless you're going to spend some of your piastries. And this one probably could have been included with talking about the types of ships you'll unlock, but yes, some of them won't be able to actually hold more cannons, or at least the higher weight ones, the 24 pounders. So if you're struggling in that combat at sea and you really want to get some help with that, well again, do make sure your ship can actually support it. As a priority though, I would focus on making sure you're getting more health. That's always good for the hulls, and definitely at any chance make sure you can upgrade your boarding party. You can of course upgrade any of these things that you do manage to buy or unlock, and it's definitely well worth some of them. Like boarding party is the thing that I struggled with the most. The amount of times I've died and have to restart, because if you do die you don't respawn on your ship, and you do have to do the whole fight again. Even if you've got 6 out of 7 of the pirates dead, yeah, you're going to have to start all over again. So definitely focus on upgrading the boarding party stuff, unless you are an absolute amazing at blocking and moving around a ship, fighting 7 pirates at once. After the thing that I struggled with the most, the amount of times I've died and have to restart, because if you do die you don't respawn on your ship, and you do have to do the whole fight again. Even if you've got 6 out of 7 of the pirates dead, yeah, you're going to have to start all over again. So definitely focus on upgrading the boarding party stuff, unless you are an absolute amazing at blocking and moving around a ship, fighting 7 pirates at once. After that I would go with the hold stuff that you can get from merchants, because then obviously if you're running a lighter ship with more power, you'll be able to stay afloat a bit longer if you manage to upgrade your hulls. But yeah, it's only actually the Blackbeard variants that can hold 24 cannons anyway until you get further down the line. Just something to bear in mind. And then yeah, I guess a little segue into combat. When it comes time to boarding, don't panic if there are more ships it's firing at you. As soon as you begin the boarding process, they should leave you alone. Now I had a glitch or bug apparently in my first few hours of playing where they wouldn't, and they would just keep on firing, but they are meant to relax. So if you're going for a ship that's got obviously the big loot box sign on it, you might want to focus on demolishing that as much as possible, and then hopefully you'll be able to board it, and any of the other gunships or seekers or whatever else is protecting it should hopefully leave you alone. At some of the vendors you can go ahead and buy merchants, and these basically set up store anywhere at your base and deliver goods for you. They're not that expensive to buy, and this is probably the one thing I would say concentrate on with factions. See what you look for or need the most. Each one of these merchant contracts will give you certain basic resources that you might not necessarily struggle that much with, but by the time you go ahead and unlock the first or the second area, completing the first, then it will start giving you more advanced stuff. So I'd actually go with the people of Tortuga to go ahead and get natural resource merchant, as well as maybe the animal hide stuff. The food one I probably would ignore, unless you've got an abundance. Don't need any resources to place them down, but you then have to worry about time. Now when I first saw this, it said 1, 2, 5 and 10, so I was kind of assuming you'd only get 1 boar tusk or 1 piece of rough hide. I know, it comes in a big crate, so you could assume there'd be more, but nothing tells you this until you've actually got one of them. So I was assuming the value for this was just crazy. Still not convinced some of the value is there. It takes 70 minutes to deliver, and you can see here I got 7 boar tusks by buying 1 box. And of course it also cost me 40 piastres. So in 70 minutes, could I go and kill a whole bunch of boars quicker? Yeah, for sure. Of course, if you have got a big supply of piastres, then you can go ahead and use them, and it will just take your mind off certain resources. I guess the thing that I struggled with most was rough hide. So if you manage to get to Tortuga pretty early, or a merchant that sells one of the merchant animal products, definitely worth picking that one up to get the rough hide early. And yeah, once you've killed the boss inside the first zone, then you'll get access to more hard to get stuff. That's where the natural resources comes in, because you'll be able to pick up sulfur. Just don't ignore these thinking you're only going to get 1 back. It doesn't look like the more you level up in a faction that you get access to any new secret stuff, although the exception to that is that you'll be able to sell one of the items to traders a bit more. Big confusion point again I've seen in Discord is players struggling to find out where to sell their box of medicinal supplies they've managed to find. Or maybe you've been killing a lot of boars and you've been getting the boar heads, which you only start really collecting once you've killed 40 of them and completed the challenge. The same goes for the dodo. So if you've been struggling to find boar heads and stuff to make a new trophy, I'm pretty sure, yeah, mine didn't actually drop until I killed 40 boars. And also a little mention here, but in the resource tab, exploration tab, I was flummoxed about exactly what I was missing. Maybe there was an island with iron, or maybe there was an island I'd be able to find sulfur. But no, it turns out it was the boar head and the dodo head. And again, it'll only pop up once you manage to get one by killing whatever amount of creatures it shows. Tortuga doesn't actually have any buyers, so that's also something to bear in mind. So even though it's telling you literally to go and sell stuff to someone at Tortuga, well, actually, no, it's at a different encampment. I think it's the encampment of the Brethren. And yeah, again, this is why it's worth making sure you find all of the NPC encampments so that you've got them all to go and sell your stuff to. So there will be a buyer at, like I said, the Brethren encampment, the Smugglers encampment, as well as the Buccaneers. But there won't be any buyers, unless I've missed it somehow, on Tortuga, just bounty sellers and the provisioners. Another tiny one and pretty obvious, but don't rely on tents. When you die, you're going to lose all of your food buffs, and eventually you might run out of potions and other stuff. So yes, you can get a respawn point, and sure, put one down, but if you travel quite a far distance to another island, then it's pretty obvious. Make sure you've always got a few bells on you. It might require a bit more time mining that copper, but it's definitely going to be worth it. Obviously, if you're playing with a lot of friends, you'll have to decide with each other how you set them. I'm not too sure if you all get 10 bells each. I'm pretty sure it's like shared. But do what I do. If you see a quest marker telling you to go and take on some of the ships, well, it shows you exactly where it is on the map. So just make sure you've put a fast travel point on the island next to it. It's a real pain in the arse not being able to spawn back on your ship, or obviously having to redo a fight, but at least if you're close by, it'll take the edge off a bit. One thing to check though, before you go and dismantle your bell thinking you might need to come back here, do check what the ruins can offer you when you go back to it. Yes, ruins do respawn certain resources and loot. Not the ones that you find in chests, but instead you've got a chance of getting the healing herbs in any of them that you might have come across with the dungeons with the drowned. That's something worth noting as well. I didn't realise that for ages. I had gathered quite a lot of healing herbs and then suddenly I run out and I didn't know exactly where to get more since I thought I'd already completed the dungeons. But yeah, they will respawn. Of course, the drowned will too, so that will make it a bit more challenging. Once you've found all of the chests.
Okay, I am going to go to bed, guys. It is 2:48 in the morning on a Sunday night and going into Monday, and it's cold, and I'm tired, and I'm going to go get all warm in my bed and go to sleep. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. I am going to stop this recording here with a reminder that you've been watching Skycatlive. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's good to see you guys today. Click on the Twitch, come click on the cast space to donate, or come to the Twitch or the YouTube, give me a like, sub, or a follow. And yeah, and that's all I have for you. I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel, which is reflected here. Oh, did we get these uploaded? Yeah, we did. Good. And there we go. And okay, I'm gonna stop the video and I will upload and then go to bed. Oops.
Autopilot engaged. Warping to Stargate. Warp drive active.
That's the correct TTK. Look, how you like one shots? That, like, you know.
Approaching Stargate.
Yeah, I actually don't know. I don't mind the TK. Yeah, this feels too easy, but I do mind them one-shotting me. I need to balance further. Fucking annoying. Oh, there we go, autopilot. So, I'm gonna stop this video. Good night, guys.